How are you, Konstantin? How are you, Larry?
Um, yeah, I'm doing good. Nice to be here, and thank you for the ending, Larry.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here and chat about, what Fringe and IoTeX can do in the future.
Man, well, so that's a great, well, that's the main point of this conversation, isn't it? But to get started, just for people in our community that are listening to this on YouTube or that are here right now, or yeah, people that come from Fringe that do not come from IoTeX and that are not too aware of what IoTeX is, would you like to just give us a quick rundown of what it is? And yeah, what it is that you guys are trying to accomplish, and highly recommend people to go to the IoTeX website because it's lots of cool stuff in there.
Yes, absolutely. Just to, introduce myself a little bit, my name is Larry, part of the founding team of IoTeX, and working on a lot of the ecosystem building as of late. We got started back in 2017, and, time really flies. It's almost been 4 or 5 years since that date. But at the core of what IoTeX is, we are a layer one blockchain built completely from scratch, EVM compatible, Web3 compatible, cheap, fast, decentralized, low fee, all of that. But really, what differentiates us is from day one, we've had a very big focus on connecting real world devices and data to the blockchain. And it's been a journey to build the layer one blockchain from scratch. That was a lot of the work from maybe 2017 to 2020. And starting in 2020, we started to do a lot of the IoT oriented middleware. IoT is the Internet of Things. It's really this phenomenon of everything that we do in our personal and professional lives, starting to incorporate all different types of sensors, devices, and machines that are connected to the internet. And there's a lot of things in the Internet of Things space just in the past few years that are very alarming. The privacy of the data, the ownership of the devices, the control of the devices, and of course, the security of the devices. So when you think about the native benefits of what blockchain can provide, privacy, security, interoperability are all things that the IoT desperately needs. So that's one way to think about it, is how blockchain can impact the Internet of Things. And the other way to think about it is how the Internet of Things can impact blockchain as a brand new data source for blockchains, right? A lot of people think about, Web3 as a way to incentivize people to do things in the digital world, whether it's stake assets as part of Fringe or in different type of money markets, or to play games in GameFi. But really, IoTeX is trying to expand the design space for Web3 outside of the digital world, so you can prove things about things you've done in the real world in order to earn digital assets, whether that's being more active and running, or driving more environmentally friendly routes, or utilizing renewable energy sources, or even showing up to events in person. All of these kind of things can be rewarded with digital assets, where different types of devices and machines are kind of the proof of things that you've done in the real world. So I think it's really cool that we're expanding what's possible with Web3, and happy to dive into some of the existing dApps and devices that we have on board on IoTeX. This entire vision that we have is kind of called machine-fi, how to financialize the data, the services, and the value that our machines generate, and make sure that everyday people and businesses are able to control that and opt into using it in the Web3 universe. So that was a mouthful.
Absolutely,
Yeah, but hopefully
absolutely
that's
love
getting.
the
Mhm.
term. Absolutely love the term machine-fi. Sorry, just wanted to interject that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything in crypto has a DeFi element to it, or at least a financial element to it, right? And, that's really because I think about the blockchain space at every single layer. There's always someone that is incentivizing someone else to do something that they wouldn't necessarily do on their own, right? With a token being the medium of exchange for those interactions. It's even at the layer one level, right? All these people running servers and nodes to power the IoTeX network, they're not doing this for fun, right? They are doing it to or earn rewards for doing it, right? And that's something that the protocol delivers. If you run a node and run the protocol and participate in consensus, then the protocol will reward you with tokens, right? At a DApp level, this is also very clear that, if you stake or deposit a certain amount of funds, the protocol will reward you with yield and the ability to collateralize your altcoins for USB stablecoins, as is the case with Fringe Finance, right? But what if we can expand that to also, incentivize incentivize people to do things in the real world, right? It's always a two-way marketplace. I think insurance is a great example of this, where your insurance provider would love to incentivize you to do things that are, more safe and more healthy. Right now, we live in a very penalty-based world where if you do something bad, you're going to get penalized for it. What Web3 really allows you to do is change that penalty-based world into a rewards-based world, or an incentive-driven world, where if you do something good, then you can get rewards for it, right? And so I think this is the promise of blockchain, is really to incentivize good activities that are win-win for both parties, instead of, always having to go through lengthy litigation process to prove who did what bad in order to, sue people and do all this kind of stuff, right? So, it just opens up a lot of possibilities for how we redefine how the world works today. And IoTeX is playing not only in the machine-fi space, we also have a thriving DeFi ecosystem, a thriving GameFi ecosystem, but how machines intersect into DeFi, whether as proof of weather to fuel weather prediction markets, or in the GameFi space, encouraging people to visit certain locations in the real world, just like Pokemon Go, in order to earn digital assets or claim NFTs. There's a lot of intersections between machines, GameFi, and DeFi, and that's really what IoTeX is bringing to the table.
I love the long-winded answer, man. That's a lot of interesting points you touch on.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, what you said about Pokemon Go just now, but that's the most recent thing. So that's what my mind immediately wants to go to. I'm thinking of the possibility for sensors using IoTeX to just empower a whole lot of new GameFi dynamics. I'm thinking of a lot of augmented reality games, a lot of virtual reality games, and plus the combination with all the metaverses and all this. And it seems like it really seems like blockchain is building the perfect storm pretty much now behind curtains right now, isn't it?
Yes.
And systems like IoTexes that allow for different incentives to take part, because let's not forget that layer ones like Ethereum and Cardano, the ones that are out there, have very specific reward structures, but you need different blockchains with different reward structures to allow for this kind of thing to happen at a different scale. And we've sort of seen that to a degree with the massive success of Helium. So I guess that's just my way of asking you, what other incentives do you think IoTeX can promote in the real world and even in the digital world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think going back to, the history of how we got here, right? The incentive models, when we first started, it was all about proof of stake and about DeFi, right? People were incentivized to deposit their assets into different smart contracts or different consensus frameworks in order to earn yield on their tokens, right? That was kind of a 2020 and before phenomenon. Now we have GameFi, where people are incentivized to do things in the digital world in order to earn digital assets. And now IoTeX is enabling the next kind of foray into Web3 by incentivizing people to do things in the real world in order to earn digital assets. And, there's a lot of, GameFi is also represented as, this slogan, play to earn, right? But playing, by definition, is kind of sitting on your phone and clicking buttons, and you're playing a game in order to earn digital assets, right? Just imagine everything you do on a daily basis, right? You go for a run, or you drive your car, or there's so many things we do at a physical level, kind of hampered a little bit by COVID. But now that the world is opening back up again, there's a lot of things that people are doing in the real world that can be incentivized to be done in a different way or in a healthier way, right? I think healthcare and wellness is a big area where people like insurance companies or even corporations want to incentivize their employees or citizens to be more healthy, right? A lot of move to earn, sweat to earn type of projects are coming out where it's kind of like the Nike running app in a way. You're kind of gamifying the process of working out. And this is just one big example. There's actually a project on IoTeX called Health Blocks that is creating an ecosystem just like this, where they're incentivizing people to take 10,000 steps and burn 100 active calories a day in order to earn some tokens. You mentioned Helium. I think Helium is of course, a project we respect a lot. They built one of the first global machine networks. But really, what Helium has created is incentives for people to set up these hotspots that deliver a special type of connectivity called LoRa. They've delivered, very high early adopter rewards for people to set up these hotspots. And in the long run, they try to find the equilibrium points between, supply and demand of people that provide this connectivity and people that want this connectivity. When we think about a lot of these use cases, specifically around healthcare data, it's also a supply and demand challenge, right? It's not easy to gather enough healthcare data from the masses to be statistically significant and valuable to maybe hedge funds or to different type of people that want to consume this data, insurance companies, again, for example. But those incentives are designed in a way to reward early adopters for providing their activities. And, by earning these different types of health tokens, you can close the loop by allowing people to purchase, vitamins or other type of healthcare related items with these tokens. So people are proving they are healthy and earning tokens for it, which can then be used to close the loop in interact with different members of this budding ecosystem, right? And that's just one type of data. We're talking about health data, right? Imagine also the automotive and mobility space. Everyone's probably used the Waze app, which is very, very popular in the States. I'm not sure globally if Waze is a thing, but Waze has encouraged, not incentivized, but encouraged people to annotate maps with different potholes and where different police officers are, right? And Waze was actually sold to Google for many billions of dollars back in 2016, 2017. Why did the people that have spent their days annotating these maps not receive any of the value for doing so, right? So when we think about coordinating the masses to build public utilities that are for the greater good, the simple answer is they should get a piece of the assets that they help to produce. And, that's really the goal of what IoTeX is going for down the road. Even for all these scooter companies out there, one of the biggest problems that they have is people rarely return the scooters to the right street corners or the right zones. So you have scooters all over residential neighborhoods and all over these different places, right? Rather than penalize people for, returning scooters to the wrong locations, what if you gave them a tiny incentive in token rewards to say, hey, this street corner is already full of scooters. I'm going to incentivize you to drop it at the next street corner where there's a lack of scooters, and I'm going to give you a token in order to do that. The token doesn't have to be money. It could be voting rights. It could be reputation. It could be one free ride for your next scooter. It just really provides a lot of new flexibility to create these incentives between service providers and service users, right? So that's just three verticals. The truth is blockchain is a horizontal technology that applies to many, many different industries, but so is the Internet of Things, right? Everything is going to incorporate a device or a sensor to, make things more efficient in the future. And we just want to utilize all of that information, all of these devices in a positive way, driven by incentives and secured by blockchain.
I have an annotation here before I ask you a very hard question.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
um, I just wanted to annotate here that many people wonder, okay, that sounds very cool, but how are you going to incentivize all these people to do whatever, to just work out or do these proof of workout systems or whatever you may want to call them? And what people need to understand as well is that these companies or people building these systems are already spending on them. So they have marketing expenses, they have human expenses, that they have all kinds of ways in which they're using money. So in some ways, they can funnel back their advertising expenses into rewarding users for using them, which is kind of, you can think of what Brave, the browser, does. They decide to use their expenditure of advertising partly in rewarding users for using the Brave browser, which in turn makes them more likely to promote it or to talk about it. So you can think of these systems as well as ways to distribute advertising expenditures back into the people that are using your systems, which I would argue is a lot more efficient with some kinds of markets, maybe not all of them. Konstantin, you've been quiet for a second, man. You got anything you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah. I wanted first to thanks Larry for painting that vision of interconnecting between the blockchain and Internet of Things, and painting that marvelous vision of how users can be incentivized to do the real life things. But I have a question: what are the biggest obstacles do you see on your way to empower and to make that vision real?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys have brought up several great points there I want to touch on, right? First of all, is how do we define these incentives and create these economies, right? And this is really where IoTeX needs to partner with people with domain knowledge in these areas, right? We don't know everything about these different verticals. IoTeX, at the core of what we are, we're infrastructure, and where our work starts and where our work ends is we are a platform that allows people to register different types of devices to the network and bring their data to the blockchain in a clean and indexed fashion that dApps can ingest, right? It's very similar to what the graph does, but rather than pulling data from different blockchains, such as the average ETH gas price last week, we're pulling data directly from machines and offering it to dApp developers to incorporate into their dApps, right? We can't solve all the world's incentive problems. We really need to partner with people that believe in this kind of user-centric future. And we need their insights to, of course, we can help them design these tokenomics to and understand how this Web3 world works. But it really requires a lot of domain knowledge to say, these are the pain points, right? If I could incentivize my user base to do these one or two things, this is how I would want to do it. And it's really a marriage of technology and business, right? In that sense. So I can, would love to go into some other different examples later on. But Konstantin, to your question, this is a very important question about how do we make these systems trustworthy? And we talk to a lot of big companies. They challenge the two big challenges that are on the top of our minds right now are you who you say you are? And are you doing what you say you're doing, right? Are you who you say you are in the healthcare space, for example, is very important. Say that we're grabbing data from different types of wearables like Apple Watches or Aura rings or whatever, right? How do you know that, just because you've purchased this device, how do you know you're the one that's actually wearing it, right? If you are incentivized to run a very fast sprint, how do you know you don't give your wearable to Usain Bolt and have him run for you, right? And this is not something that blockchain or even IoT can really solve. You really have to incorporate some type of AI elements in the future to say, hey, your resting heart rate was this yesterday, and now your resting heart rate is this today. You are not who you say you are, right? IoTeX is a big initiative. We've actually started an IEEE standard called Identity of Things, which is a decentralized identity-based framework. A lot of people are working on decentralized identity for people, right? To prove, are you who you say you are to other people? In the device space, this is also very possible. is the device that's sending data to the blockchain actually the device that other people are supposed to be trusting, right? So identity of people and identity of devices is a very big component of this. The second question about are you saying what you say, are you doing what you say you're doing? This is also a very tough challenge to solve because going back to the healthcare example again, say that you are being incentivized to run 3 miles a day by your company because they want you to be healthier, right? How do you know the person's not skateboarding or biking instead of running, right? And again, this is not something that blockchain itself is going to solve, but I think the summary of this is the data that you put on a blockchain is only as good as the verifiability of that data. Chainlink proved this to us in the DeFi space, right? Really, that DeFi renaissance of 2020 was sparked because for the first time, people had consensus and agreement on what the price of an asset was at any specific time, right? So the act of bringing verifiably trustworthy data from devices, from trusted users and trusted devices to the chain, these are all the challenges that IoTeX has been slaving away over for the past 3-4 years, right? We made a lot of progress. One of our new devices called Pebble Tracker solves these problems in a very real way for the asset tracking space. One of the big innovations that IoTeX has enabled is the use of what's called secure hardware to guarantee that the device that's sending data to the chain has an identity that other people can verify, and also that this data, it wasn't just simulated, because there's a special type of hardware in this device. It's called a secure element or a trusted execution environment. It's the same chip in your phone that does your Face ID and your fingerprints. It's the same chip in your Ledger hardware wallet that protects your private keys. It's the same chip on your credit card that protects your spending credentials, right? And this specialized hardware is kind of isolated from the main processor to basically just do what it's told, right? There's a reason why you trust Apple Face ID to unlock your phone. It's because that process is isolated and no one can tamper that, right? So what we're talking about is the combination of tamper-proof hardware and tamper-proof software in the form of smart contracts to enable tamper-proof incentive structures, right? So I'm really glad you guys are asking these questions, because these are things that we think about all the time. The last point you made, Konstantin, Carlos, about advertising, I think this is a huge opportunity to flip that entire business model, right? This is a business model of Web 2, is to gather all this information about people behind the scene through free services like social media and try to guess who you are, right? Based on what you say. Everyone said something near their phone and the next second an advertisement pops up, right? All these guys are trying to collect data on us behind the scenes and basically guess who we are, form digital profiles of ourselves or of their users, and sell it to advertisers so they can target advertisements toward them. Not only is that creepy, but it's inefficient because there's so many middlemen required in order to create these advertising structures. What Web3 and user custodied wallets are going to allow people to do is, say I have all these real world activities that are verifiable and tied to my identity, whether it's the things I purchase or the places I've visited, or even the paths that I've ran or the locations that I've been in the past, right? If all of that is associated with my pseudonymous identity, then advertisers can skip all of the digital profile bullshit and just go directly to me saying, hey, I saw that you purchased there, maybe you can opt into sharing this data, of course, because you own it. But I saw that you purchased camping equipment and that you visited these 3 campsites in the past year. So I'm going to deliver you direct discounted offers, kind of like a Groupon offer, because I know the proof is associated with your identity, right? That's really how you flip this model to be, I own my data and I opt into sharing it to earn these offers, versus I'm just going about, posting stuff on social media and talking in my house and I get unwarranted offers, right? So it's really a win-win for both sides. The losers in this new Web3 model are going to be all the intermediaries that just facilitate this stuff, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Instagrams of the world. But if we can remove those intermediaries and just create a frictionless way for advertisers to, or companies rather, not even advertisers, companies to market their services or market their products to people that know that they want them, I think that changes the entire model, right? So another long-winded 3-part answer, but this is the brand new design space that we're working with, and it's just very exciting to talk about.
Well, I think of something like there are psychological studies, man, that show that punishment, because you were talking previously about the shift from punishment culture into an incentive culture.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what we all want, right? We all want to be spreading positive things instead of negative things. However, there are psychological studies that show that fear of punishment or fear of negative outcomes is a lot more, well, it's a lot more compulsory in the human brain to get you to do stuff, right? Because and there are even studies that show that this is a tenfold difference.
Mm-hmm.
So you're way more likely to feel the pain of losing, let's say, $100 than you're likely to work to try and get them.
Yeah.
So have you noticed any reticence from users to use systems that are powered by incentives rather than the normal punishment structures?
Yeah.
I don't know if this question makes sense. And I also wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate you guys for the tremendous growth you've seen. What is it, like 4,000% user increase?
Yeah. No, to answer that first thing, I think it's a very interesting concept to bring these psychological studies into it, right? Because what we're doing is trying to change consumer or business behavior, right? And changing people's behavior is one of the hardest things in the world, right? And I would say it doesn't have to be a penalty system or an incentive system. It could be both, right? Think about your job or whatever your people are hired to do, right? There's always the risk of getting fired, right? I would say that's like you said, probably the biggest reason why people try to do a good job or try to do a decent job is not to get fired, right? But how do you encourage people to do a great job instead of a good job, right? I think these things can be kind of paired together to say, think about a supply chain transaction, right? There's a certain if you're shipping fish from Japan to the United States, for example, right? You never want that fish to be above freezing temperature, or else it's going to go bad, right? And there could be penalties associated with shipping fish above that. And IoT sensors are going to be a big part of how you prove who's at fault, right? But say that this is a very, very important type of package that you're shipping, and you don't want people to even teeter on is it -1 degree Celsius or is it 0 degrees Celsius? Let's build some assurance to move it down to -10 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to incentivize you to, if you maintain the temperature below -10 degrees Celsius, which is building a buffer, maybe I pay you 10% extra, right? And for the person that the service provider that's shipping this fish, they can make that decision whether or not to strive for those incentives, kind of like you're striving for a bonus from your employer, or just do the bare minimum job and receive the normal payment, right? So these two things, I think, a penalty-based system, we're not removing that, but adding incentives can make people do things that they wouldn't necessarily do if it didn't exist, right? I think that's a huge opportunity. And as far as the growth of IoTeX goes, I mean, last year was a really breakout year for IoTeX. It's funny because, we have always believed that, real world data is going to change everything for blockchain. In the future, we even believe that autonomous machines are going to be the biggest users of blockchains, right? just devices that do what they're told, listening to smart contracts that do what they're told. It's really the foundation for automation in my view, right? But the reason why, last year was a breakout year is finally we had something to show for all this stuff, right? Connecting devices to blockchains is not easy. And it's really taken a lot of sweat and grind from the team in order to make all this stuff happen. And I think that, DeFi was a huge phenomenon in 2020, but 2021 really introduced a lot of different use cases for blockchain, from NFTs to DAOs to GameFi, that really expanded people's view outside of just finance, right? And I think the natural next step for crypto is, how does this stuff apply to things that, it's not just us sitting in front of our computers and our phones, but, we can do things and be incentivized to change the way we do things in the real world, right? So I think there's a whole confluence of things, from the maturity of the IoTeX platform to the real use cases and real devices that we're putting out, to just like the you're talking about psychology and like the readiness of people to try to understand these new use cases, right? I still think this Internet of Things space is at the back of people's minds still, because there's so much stuff going on in NFTs and DAOs and GameFi. But we've never been more bullish on the direction that we're heading, because it just makes so much sense. Do you know what I mean? So, market's in kind of a turmoil over the past few months. And of course, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, but I wouldn't be surprised if our growth continued at a hyperscale this year. It's not just IoTeX, the platform anymore. It's really IoTeX, the ecosystem, from, different DApps to enterprises to even cities and governments that are really subscribing to the MachineFi concept. So we're excited that we've gotten this far, but I really do think that, the reality of what we're proposing and building and enabling others to build as well is just getting started, man.
And Konstantin, do you want to add anything there? I think that right now is a great time to start moving things a bit into the DeFi territory.
Absolutely.
I was just enjoying what Larry was telling. Yeah, I wanted to ask, you have started from 2017. How your vision changed from the very beginning? What was it in the beginning, and how it's changed from the time?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
There's a lot of, crypto projects pivot all the time, right? I wouldn't say we've pivoted extremely hard, but like the utility of devices and the data that they produce, honestly, our thinking has changed a little bit in that respect, right? I think, if you're talking from like the early days of IoTeX, deciding what consensus mechanism to use and what virtual machine we should use, it seems like, ancient history to be talking about that stuff, but there's always new innovations, and, people thought it would be easier than it was to build these layer one blockchains. But, we're past that stage now. Now we're kind of, how do we use this very unique infrastructure and technology that IoTeX has to enable applications, right? I would say the first use case for Internet of Things that a lot of people were thinking about was data marketplaces, right? Which is also just makes a lot of sense. There's billions of machines out there. By 2030, these machines are going to be generating 80 zettabytes of data, which is 80 trillion gigabytes of data. What better infrastructure to power the exchange and sale of data sets than blockchain, right? But at the same time, now our thinking has shifted a little bit. Data marketplaces is probably going to be the result of a thriving device ecosystem. Using devices just to generate data to be sold, that's going to be the after effect of what our focus is now, which is really to use devices and machines to prove things about what we've done in the real world. And that's not using the entirety of all data produced, but specific insights that you can grab from this data, right? At what point in that supply chain transaction did the temperature go above freezing temperature, right? You don't need the entirety of that data set to understand that at 12 p.m. on this day, the person that is responsible for the fish going bad is at fault, right? That's a data point, not a data set, right? So using machines almost as proof generators for the blockchain, this has kind of been a shift in our understanding of how Web3 is going to evolve, right? We're still very bullish on data marketplaces kind of further down the road, but the truth is data as a product needs to be statistically significant and needs to be diverse enough for people to want to buy it, right? And it's going to be difficult to overthrow, the top-down data collection of a lot of these Web2 companies. But down the road, once we have more users, more devices, and all of these things, we can build bottoms-up data sets that can really challenge the data industry, right? But I do think that using machines as proof generators of things that we do in the real world, this is going to be a phenomenon that IoTeX is really starting. We have a lot of projects using wearables to prove their health activities. We have that Pebble Tracker device. Everyone should go check out Pebble Tracker. There's about 1,000 we've shipped so far to different people around the world, but this device has a bunch of sensors on it. It has GPS, temperature, humidity, air quality, air pressure, motion, vibration, and light. It really provides a 360 view of whatever asset that is tracking, whether it's a person, a dog, a vehicle, a package, a container. It can even track remote things that aren't supposed to move, right? Like proxy smoke detector or something like that, right? So this device can prove things about the condition of an asset or the location of a person, and we can use that as an input to a smart contract to trigger some type of business logic, right? Probably my favorite use case that we're really tackling right now is using one's geolocation. Like if you go to a specific place at a specific time, that unlocks your ability to do something, whether it's claim an NFT or receive an airdrop or even receive some universal basic income from your city by proving that you are a resident or, your history over the past 30 days has been in this city, right? So geolocation is one thing we're very, very bullish on. We actually have a new protocol that we're launching that will allow other people to use this geolocation in their DApps. It's called Proof of Presence, or POP protocol. And POP is really going to enable all those use cases. We're talking to Cello and some other folks right now about delivering stable coins to different hyperinflation countries based on their geolocation as proof. Talking to a lot of different normal restaurants and event organizers and conference organizers to allow people to claim NFTs if they prove they were actually at the event or at the conference. And of course, for projects, if they want to build a community in a country that they don't really have a community in already, then they can deliver airdrops to specific regions and things like this, right? So this is just one type of data, geolocation, but there's so many use cases for it, right? If you think about all the data that's collected from all the different types of devices out there, all of them are going to sprout different types of incentives. And, again, this is where IoTex's work starts and ends. We give people the ability to grab this data from devices, and we want to hear what they want to build with it, right? So even more interesting is when you start to combine multiple types of data together, right? Maybe it's your geolocation and your heart rate, or your geolocation and your whatever, right? So the design space that we're creating is really brand new, and it's also, in my opinion, it's infinite, right? There's infinite number of things we could do with this kind of data.
And I think that's a very good point of entry for people also into DeFi or into crypto systems, because of course, ideally, you don't want the people buying devices to do them because they're going to get rewarded. Also, that would be that would obviously be a part of the decision, and there's a different. I mean, you don't want to take that away from your marketing standpoint or from your uniqueness.
Right.
But at the same time, if the device is good enough that people would want it anyways, regardless of whether they would get rewarded, then that's a whole entry point into crypto and into DeFi. And well, what we at Fringe are trying to do is like take advantage of people that have tokens anyways, and hopefully they have them because they did something great in the real world, and use that as a segue into helping them join DeFi, helping them escape the traditional financial system and be like their own custodians and all the great things that crypto is promising to people, and that we're continue seeing confirmations of every day of the importance of these things.
No, 100%.
Larry,
I think what you guys are doing at Fringe is, a very important pillar. And I honestly think it is the first killer use case of crypto, is allowing people not only to earn, more than 0.2% APR on their savings accounts, right? To earn, upwards of 20% just by single side staking stable coins, right? Like, how is that not already proliferating through the entire universe? Maybe it's, crypto still has a little negative connotation to the mainstream, but that's going to be the biggest use case. And once people start getting comfortable with holding altcoins, which represent ownership of different types of networks, being able to collateralize that into stablecoins so they can use it to buy houses or different things, like, these are the secrets of the wealthy, right? You buy commercial real estate, you collateralize it, and you use it to purchase other commercial real estate tax-free. And you do that in cycles and cycles and cycles. And these are the secrets of the wealthy, right? And I think that, what Fringe and other money markets and this DeFi space in general are doing is a huge educational component to how to get the mainstream on board with this. But once that happens, banks are in trouble. And, all of those loan shark type of companies are also in trouble, and rightfully so, because, they're very predatory, whereas these are open incentives that anyone can choose to participate in without any strings attached to it, right?
Unless you just love your negative interest rate too much, in which case you can continue to live with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to cut you short, because I know the stuff you're saying is amazing, really, and we're really happy that you came in here. I wanted to start getting people participating in this chat just before we close it. I know you have limited time, so why don't we just open the floor for Vlad, who has been waiting for his turn to speak for a while now. Sure. I'm going to
come on stage,
accept you now as a speaker, and I'm really looking forward to having you again on these calls, Larry, because I'm sure we could keep this conversation going for 3 hours.
Hello, guys.
So, Vlad,
do you hear me?
Yeah, hey Vlad.
We hear you.
Okay, I'm fine, thank you. I came here just to wish you best of luck, and I'm a IoTeX holder. I'm gonna keep them for my kids. I'm very bullish on IoTeX, and greetings from Romania.
Awesome, yeah, great to hear from you, Vlad. Excited to
nice to meet you.
You're part of the vision. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep accumulating, and I'm a little bit I don't know how to say it.
Shy.
No, hi. Shy. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
No problem, bro.
Well, thank you for joining, Vlad. And yeah, is there anything in particular that you'd like to speak to about the Romania, Larry? I'm not too aware of the Romanian community of IoTeX, so I don't know if there's anything special going on in there.
No, I think everyone is bullish after what Larry was saying.
Very bullish.
On the ones who are unfamiliar with IoTeX previously.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, you've probably seen the evolution of where we're heading, but I think, the important thing to know is we're very mission driven, right?
I've seen I've seen a lot of spikes in the IoTeX market last days. Somebody is just keeping accumulating the tokens.
Yeah, it seems like the crypto markets took a turn for the better, which is good news. But who knows? There's a lot of uncertainty in the world, so we'll see how the market holds up.
Yeah, is there anyone else that would like to say something before we finish this call, guys? Anyone else that would like to request to speak? This is now your time. Speak now, or be quiet forever.
Yeah, jump on stage. In the meantime, yeah, I think just to chat about what IoTeX and Fringe can do in the future, right? Of course, there's a lot of IoTeX native tokens that could be deposited to Fringe and other money markets to collateralize into stablecoins. I think this is a feature that the community has been dying for. So we're very looking forward to giving our community the opportunity to do that. But even down the road, when we think about data as an asset, right? Everyone says data is the new gold. Then our devices are going to be the gold mines. And I think that collateralizing your data in order to receive stable coins, maybe this is something that's very futuristic now, but I think in 6 months, 1 year, it's going to become a very real reality, right? How to structure data into products itself, and maybe whether it's user owned or community owned collateralization of this data into stable coins. I think still a lot of questions to be answered for these types of use cases, but yeah, we're looking forward to exploring it with great partners like Fringe.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to having people bringing in their IoTeX tokens and using them to leverage their crypto positions elsewhere, or just as a general way to support IoTeX. Because let's not forget that locking tokens into platforms such as Fringe will also greatly helps reduce the number of tokens that are in the market. Not to say that if you are bullish on a project, you should definitely take a loan. Of course, it's like a more complex system than that. But it's just our main goal is to build primitives that people can use all across DeFi. And by integrating these, we hope to just incentivize the DeFi ecosystem to keep building the Lego house, to continue just building on top of things and allowing DeFi to truly be for everyone, which, because some might be surprised to hear this, but like DeFi right now is very exclusive to big projects. And we're trying to not only have the top 10% at CoinMarketCap participating in DeFi, not only have the top 15, but maybe to expand that all over to the top 200, top 300, and why not eventually include everyone?
100%.
That's the vision. And I'm happy that you guys want to be a part of it then. And well, thanks again for joining. Do you have anything that you'd like to share? Anything that you'd like to ask the people listening to do before we finish this?
Yeah. For anyone that's new to IoTeX, just check out our community. IoTeX.io is the website, has all the resources you need. There's a lot of real world products and devices you can purchase right now. One is called UCam. It's actually a product we launched back in 2020. It's a private security camera. Uses blockchain identity as a way to do like the your keys, your data model instead of your keys, your funds. Pebble Tracker is the newest product of ours. You can order it on Crowd Supply right now. It's going to be participating in a lot of these geolocation based protocols and applications that are coming out. And, we're kind of holding off on some major announcements just because of the tone of the bigger things at hand right now around the world. But stay tuned for some bigger announcements later this month or whenever the time feels right. So I appreciate you guys for having me on. We can definitely do it again. And we do some ecosystem spotlights on IoTeX. We'd love to have you guys share more about Fringe to our community as well.
We'd be really happy to participate in such a thing. So for everyone listening from the Fringe community, please expect that. Konstantin, any closing thoughts? Or are you too busy buying IoTeX tokens right now?
Yeah, I'm too busy with that. Thank you very much, Larry, for sharing your vision. It was absolutely amazing experience.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
And definitely something new for a lot of us, for me personally.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for having me again. We'll do it again soon, okay?
And to those that didn't get to listen to this whole thing, or that just want to revisit the conversation, that want to get to hear Vlad's voice in his short but moving participation, you'd be able to do so on YouTube. So we'll be uploading this, we'll be sharing it on Twitter. Thanks everyone. Go follow Larry, go follow Konstantin, go follow IoTeX, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.